Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Xact Mobile SDK webinar. Today, we are going to present the webinar, and then this webinar will be recorded and will be later on be available in Slack. So kindly mute your microphones. If there's any questions throughout the webinar, there's Q&A sessions at the end. So yeah, let's get started. Oops. So I'm Jessie. So I will be presenting this together with JS, the Xact Data Solutions team from Kuala Lumpur. And then at the Q&A sessions, we will be supported by Shavalit and Krisada, the Xact development team, two awesome guys that developed the SDK from Thailand. So yeah. This is the agenda for today. We will talk about the overview of the SDK, the data payload, and the mobile ad ID breach, and then relevance, segmentations, how we created it, and then the insights and how we can use it for some use cases, and then we will have the Q&A sessions. So let me hand it over to JS to continue it for the overview.
Okay, hi everyone. So the Xact Mobile SDK, we refer to it as XS here just as an internal nickname, just to make it shorter. We're not giving it any actual brand or product name now, we just refer to it this way. So what is the Xact Mobile SDK? It's ADA Xact's very own mobile SDK. A very obvious sentence, but I just wanted to mention that there's a milestone here for us, because up to now, we have always been relying, when dealing with customer apps, always been relying on whatever SDK they had installed. And SDK, which means Software Development Kit, is often referred to mobile measurement partners, names that you might recognize like Adjust, AppsFlyer, Coachava, Mixpanel, CleverTap is also one of them. So, another thing that is new here is that we are now going to take control over the data that can be collected from an app. So now this is our own. It's an in-app event tracker. So it's able to track what people are using, how people are using their app, what they are doing inside. It's also a location tracker. We'll talk about this in a bit more detail in the upcoming slides. And it's also finally a bridge between customers' first-party data and Xact's UDH. So this is a new capability. Up to now, we have not had that, the ability to enrich customers' data with our own. So now we'll be able to. The Xact Mobile SDK is a lightweight bundle, so when we install this into a customer app, it does not suddenly make it blow up into a giant app. It's very small, lean and mean, as we call it, very to the point and efficient. It can be easily installed and embedded into any mobile app, as previously mentioned, just like any other MMP or any other SDK. And we already are supporting iOS and Android, so we're ready for whatever the client's app versions they have. So overview, what does it do? So XS, when installed in an app and users are using it, whatever it is that they're doing, there is information that is being captured from what is happening inside the app. This information is actually sent to a buffering service. The idea of having a buffering service is that if there's a high velocity, high volume peak of usage, there's a lot of data being sent at the same time to a server. It will prevent any information loss. So this is called a fire hose in this case. So we can visualize if the fire hose growing and expanding as data is going in, as it's buffering all of it and spewing it out at the other end at a pace that a server can handle. So the data sent through the fire hose buffering, and then it goes into into our UDH, Xact UDH, which is also stored in AWS. And once the data is there, then it allows our data science team to search and process it and turn it into actionable insights using a bunch of different tools. So here's a few more details on the tech side. The SDK itself is developed in JavaScript, which is a very popular language for SDKs. Even SDKs developed in multiple languages, we have seen JavaScript as being the preferred language that is chosen for the installation. The buffering service that we use in this particular case is AWS. It's called Kinesis Data Firehose. Xact UDH is also in an AWS environment. And the tools that are being used by the data science team to process this data, there's a bunch of them. Here's a few: Elasticsearch, Elastic MapReduce, Athena, Apache Spark, languages like Python and Scala. So this is it for the overview. Now let's have a look at the data payload, the data that can be captured from our customer apps once XS is installed inside. So the data payload. First of all, the minimum data that is required to capture is the app ID. Of course, this is for us to be able to differentiate once we have several different apps with XS installed, to be able to know the payload incoming is coming from which app, which of our clients. Another required field is the mobile advertising ID, because this is what is going to enable us to really milk this data and enrich it later on. A bit more details coming on that. If we have install date is also something that can be captured from the SDK and sent over to us. So this will allow cohort analytics to take place. So we know the incoming data is coming from a user that has installed how long ago. So one capability that's really interesting. We can also, if the device allows location and the app has location permission, so this will not be the case necessarily all the time, but we can grab the location, longitude and latitude, either for every event or on app open. Again, this is our choice. Those are all data options that we're looking at. The events themselves, so the SDK can just focus on its most simplistic version on simply capturing the user's mobile advertising ID. But if we want, we can also use it to really track in-app events. So each event will have an ID, which will identify, are we looking at an install being done, or a registration, or somebody browsing some products and adding them to cart, making purchases or something like that. Details could include what they have just put in the cart or how much they have just paid for it, things like that, and timestamp, of course, when those events are taking place. So this is full-blown event tracking, which is usage tracking. Other possibilities that we can capture is network information. So carrier, who they're connected with, and is it broadband or Wi-Fi connection. Something new here that is available that we can grab if we want is the signal strength. So this is interesting because by combining, let's say, timestamp and latitude and longitude and the carrier and the signal strength, we actually have the building blocks here if we wanted to start building coverage maps or signal strength maps. So this opens up an interesting possibility for us. Of course, we can also capture device information, like the make and model, OS and version, and a bunch of other details, like screen size and battery levels. I think the most interesting thing in this is the OS, definitely, because iOS users and Android users are really two different types of animals. They don't use apps the same way. They don't have similar lifestyles so much. It's really an important characteristic to be able to separate. And then there's a bunch of sensors in the devices. If we wish, we could capture, readings from barometer, accelerometer, and so on. This could be used, for example, to compute things like arrival at a particular place, dwell time, departure, the speed, the direction, and so on. So this gives you a snapshot of available data that we can capture from within a customer app on their own users as they are using this app. Of all of the data that you're seeing here, the most interesting one to me anyway is the mobile advertising ID, which is why it's required here, because it is what allows to bridge all of the collected data with our UDH. So this means that for every user that is using this app and on which we are collecting all of the chosen data points, we all of a sudden can enrich massively what is known about them. So in a shortened version, which you have already seen, I think in other webinars, just a little reminder that the data collected in UDH comes from about 20,000 different apps. So all of these apps are categorized, into is it games, and if it's a game, is it a puzzle game or a strategy game? Is it financial apps or utilities, entertainment, things like that? And so these apps that are found on a user's phone can be used to build app profiles. For instance, people who are more inclined towards entertainment apps that have, video and photo and music apps versus others who will be more maybe gaming oriented, or others will be more, financial and business apps oriented. So this is something that we can complement, because without UDH data, we would only know that the users are using that particular client's app. So now all of a sudden we have this entire app ecosystem that is shaping up to help us better understand who they are. Geolocation. So again, we are collecting, as seen just above it, the location of users as they are using the app. But when they are not using the app, again, we're tapping into this wide range of apps that are available in UDH, which a large quantity of them are providing data signals and location signals. So this allows to know not just from the moment where a user starts using our customer's app, a brand new user, by identifying their mobile ad ID, we can even tap into maybe something like a year of historical locations. So right out of the gates, we already know a lot about their behaviors and routines. We have several countries that are covered in UDH. So this would allow us to also categorize a brand new user as a business traveler, let's say, if they are seen in other countries in the central business districts, or as leisure travelers if they are seen in resorts and things like that. Geolocation in itself is just a GPS coordinates, right? It's a latitude and a longitude. And so those two numbers are not really interesting in themselves unless we know what is found at that particular location. So this is where really we're leveraging the location power, is by connecting the GPS locations to what we call the places of interest, or points of interest, or POI database. Everything that you see here is, again, a sample, limited by the slide size, of places where we can identify where the users, our customer's user, are found. Not necessarily while using the app, although we can also have this location, but also when they're using any of the other 20,000 apps. So we can identify, for instance, if a user is a car owner, because they are seen, as an example, in Honda dealerships, right? If there's a break in pattern where all of a sudden, instead of only showing up at Honda dealerships, they start showing up at different car brands, Honda, Toyota, and Mitsubishi, that might indicate that they're actually starting to shop for a car. So you can maybe start to have a sense of the richness of the information that we can learn on who our users are, who the customer's users are, who are these people using this app that we've installed Access into. Shopping malls also reveal something about lifestyle. Are they, are these users or these devices showing up at shopping malls only on weekends or frequently, or which shopping malls? Many are always the same. Same thing with schools, nursery, colleges, and universities, and so on. If a device is seen popping up at the school, for example, in the morning and then at the end of the day for a quick duration, that seems to indicate that they might be dropping off some kids and then picking them up again, as an example. Religious places also is a good indicator of lifestyle. Banks, financial institutions, same thing, public transport, gym and fitness. This is, again, all of these points of interest are really relevant when it comes to defining the lifestyle. Why do we want to define lifestyle? Because we're going to see later that what's really important for us in marketing is to reach out to users with relevant messaging. So all of this contributes to our understanding of who they are, if they are seen at sports stadiums regularly or not. How often do they, show up at hospitals, hotels, restaurants, right? Fine dining or quick serve restaurants, fast food, very different lifestyle choices. The morning coffee shop routine or not, that contributes to it. Airports, maternity, this is another interesting one, bridal shops. Government offices, can be interesting to see devices that go there every day for work. Jewelry as a good signal for affluence, perhaps. Bars, lounges, also lifestyle indicator. Golf course. So all of this data, combining the data collected from the in-app with the data found in UDH. Again, this is just a sample of it. The whole idea of that is to leverage it in order to then be relevant. So for the relevance part, I'm going to hand it over to Jess.
Hey. So yeah, why must we have the relevance in here? Because one size does not fit all. So we actually have some examples. One examples here, which is from BCA Finance, which is car financial institutions in Indonesia. So at this ad, you can look at it as a credit for car loan. It's like a car loan, 5 years, and then it says super low interest or super low installment payment. Like, this is a blanket targeting, and it's ineffective. Because why? Because there's different groups of customers are looking for different things, such as value seekers, people who looks for long-term value. They want to know every single things within the 5 years, what's happening and what's all there. Then also deal seekers. Well, we know some people, they don't care about long-term. They don't care about the installment payment, but what do they care is how much do I pay now upfront? What is my first payment? And also a bunch of people that is, they want quality customer service. I want people to serve me well. Well, yeah, we know that, right? So how do we target these people with relevance of advertisements? For value seekers, we can show an ad that shows every year's what is the interest rate for the next 5 to 6 years. And then these will capture their attentions, definitely, because this is what they care. But deal seekers, well, what they care is no provision fee, no low down payments where the first payment is low, but they don't really care about the interest rate, so that's fine. Then quality customer service, well, these people, they don't even want to look at numbers because it's too complicated. What they want is what your company can do about for me. What is the service that I'm getting if I engage with BCA? So these are all the relevance that we can do when we create segmentations for our group of users. And then again, we emphasize irrelevant ads are a waste of advertising budget and annoyance and can cause churn. So next, we will see how segmentation is done. So we have seen three segmentations just now, like deal seekers, value seekers, and high society people who wants quality customer service. Then we have digital native, stalwarts, and capricious community. How do we define these segments is based on the in-app behavior. So we can look at what they do, what they actually interested, what they browse, and so on in the apps itself. And then we found them in the UDH, offline lifestyles, like what JS mentioned earlier, the combinations of 20,000 apps of usage, what kind of apps they have in their phones, where is the locations that it's constantly seen, and what is the lifestyle behavior. And why is this important? Because when we do acquisitions, we can actually use these offline lifestyles, and with the intelligence of our data scientist team in Kuala Lumpur, using machine learning to find non-BCA users in the UDH, then target these people with the relevant advertisements as well. Then let's drill down to insights. So not only we can see who they are via segments, we can also even see exactly who they are, such as their age, what they subscribed, tiers of users, whether they are gamers or their financial apps, based on the percentage of their community versus the average of Indonesia national community. So in here, we can see who they are, and then we know that these people's stability and the characteristics is significant. Then next, we can even look closer in it, is that to individual each characteristics, we can see the breakdown of it, and the breakdown of which telco they goes, and the rest is on other telcos, and then whether they're Android or iOS user, or even the percentage, the populations of it, where do they go on a golf course, on a frequent locations. So next, we will see how do we use all these insights and segmentations for use case. So this is BCA auto financing use case that we see. So like I mentioned, they're actually a car loan financer, right? So if they loan some money to someone, an individual, and then we know that it's usually seen in certain neighborhood as per registered locations. And then one fine day, they just decided to change to a new neighborhood, and oh no, they did not pay off their loan. So where does BCA needs to find them and seize back the car? Or maybe just say, hey, knock on the door and say, hey, can you pay back the loan? Then this is what SDK can do, because we can actually identify them in a new locations, and also frequently seen locations where it's a new place, reason is a new behavior compared to the previous one. Then next, also we can see Boost use case for Boost Malaysia, whereby we can see the Boost merchants where they are based on the points of interest that we get. And then we can also see the Boost active and inactive users. In here, what we can do is we can see certain groups whereby there's merchants, but there's all non-active users, and also maybe not much users, but there's enough merchants. And then what we can do is user reactivations and also user acquisitions. We can get more because we already know there is merchants ready for them to spend with. And then next we can see, wow, there are peoples surrounding, but there is no merchant. Maybe we missed out, because this is the offline behavior, not the online where they registered their addresses is, right? So yeah, we can see frequently these active users hang out, and then some are changing to inactive, and some are a group of inactive users. Maybe that's because no merchants is nearby. So what we can do is that we acquired merchants in that particular location. so that they can spend too. Then next is that we can see, wow, healthy environment where enough merchants to support enough users is there. So what we can do here also is engagement. But remember, it's relevance engagement. Yeah. So we can identify by the segments of the users there, and then we target them with the relevant ads so that we don't cause wastage. So yeah, I guess throughout the presentations, we have probably some questions popping up here and there. It's quick presentations, so let's go for Q&A sessions, which supported by Shavalit and Krisada at this point. Hey.
Hey.
Can I know when will this be available for deployment?
Well, right now, actually, so almost right now. The only thing that we have yet to do is to complete a service agreement, basically the contract. So the tech is ready. We're ready to implement it iOS and Android. So right now we are at just starting on the service agreement, but we are not starting with a blank page. We have some template SDK service agreements to start with. So we're going to very quickly be able to fit it to our needs, and then we're good to go. So I guess there's nothing stopping us from initiating conversations with clients at this moment. So it's a presentation and I guess also sort of a launch.
Yeah.
All right.
From Kuku, do you guys collect historical locations and updates for those?
Do we collect historical location and updates? So here's an example. People who are using the customer's app, okay? So once we install it inside, we are collecting the mobile advertising ID. And then using this mobile advertising ID, we can find, perhaps not all, but a significant portion, hopefully, of those users inside the UDH. And when we find them and we identify, our Universal Data Hub already has over a year of historical locations. So this is how we are actually going to generate a historical location. And in terms of updates, once the the Xact SDK is installed inside an app, then every time that people are using it, it's going to send us some updates on their locations. And in addition to this, any of the other 20,000 apps that those users are using, several of them are also generating locations. So I think in terms of location, there's a lot of richness there, right? We have looking back almost a year, looking to the future, constant updates coming in from a lot of different apps. So I hope I answered your question there properly. In a country like Bangladesh, for a telecom brand, absolutely, this SDK can be installed there. And UDH data is quite good in Bangladesh, so we can identify users there and enrich their profile with whatever it is that we know from there. Are these points of interest widely accepted in the industry? For example, Google's POI. We are in the process of actually making our own POI database better than Google. It's a big statement, right? But it's a different use case than Google. Google aims to take you to a front door of any venue. For instance, a sports stadium is a big venue, and Google will take you to the front door and then leave it up to you to make your way inside. However, if we want to identify which users are found inside the stadium, we need something better than just the address of the front door. We need to be able to look from a satellite perspective. Where is the center of the stadium? Drop a place mark right there in the middle of the field and identify the relevant radius to surround the stadium, and then declare that this is a geofenced location and anybody seen inside is present at the stadium, as opposed to people just walking nearby. So in that sense, it's going to be even better than POI and then Google's POI. So this is work in progress. I think we still have a few weeks before the whole points of interest is that good and that clean. But But yes, it's widely accepted points of interest that we're starting with and improving and enriching from various sources also. For instance, we're going to layer on top of our points of interest database, which come from mostly from Google. There's also OpenStreetMap, which is available, just to name a few. There's more also, places of interest that are coming. So the same example that we provided for Boost, can something similar be done for telecom customers' basis, their data usage, and nearby recharge stores?
Yes.
So from using telecom apps.
Yes, we can actually do that. Actually, yes, we can do that for the telecom customers. If let's say the telco apps that has installed Xact SDK, we can actually see like for instance, top-up transactions. Where are they? Are they at the nearby recharge stores, or they do it online in the apps via credit cards or via debit online debit or anything? We can actually see that because with the events tracker. And then at the same time, if we see the recharge stores and we have the POI laid on the map, we can basically also target people who is nearby there for them and their users as well. And on top of that, we can also do something extra. For instance, we are actually gathering all the other carrier users at the particular area, also the signal strength. So we can also give some insights to the telco and advise them and say if that at the particular area of it, their signal strength is not that strong, then what is the purpose of they do marketing there? Because it's actually a waste of money, right? But then if their signal strength is strong, but their competitors are having more audience in that particular area, yes, then we can actually look at some insights where the recharge stores is not convenient or anything, right? Other than that, we can basically see it as well. Because what we have in the app itself is only the telco data, but then additional on top of that, we have the UDH data to enhance it and enrich it. So next.
A question here on the methodology to identify credit and debit card users. If so, is it from financial app users? So financial app is a broad category. It includes management of personal budget. It includes currency exchange apps. It includes stock portfolio management. So I would not necessarily consider that financial app users is the best place to look for credit card users. However, we have a couple of different potential sources to identify credit card users. One of them is shopping apps, because let's say it's highly likely that people who are using shopping apps, e-commerce basically, it's highly likely that they have a credit card because it's a good payment facility. Another way would be to get some clients to contribute such anonymous data points to us. I'm surprised we haven't gotten questions on anonymity or PDPA friendliness. Maybe I just created those questions by mentioning it. Anyway, all of this is of course safe. So we don't have any particular details on credit cards users, but we can leverage some clients who do know that their users have credit cards, not to mention Boost, for example. If we have this variable included in our data exchange with them, they can provide us with these anonymous users who are known credit card users. So this would be one way of doing it. If I missed out on some of these answers, feel free to add. We still have quite a bit of time, and for those questions that we don't have time to get to anyway, this discussion will be able to continue on the Slack channel for it. But for now, we still have time, so let's continue. Full form of UDH. I assume here we are talking about what that acronym means, which would be Universal Data Hub. So it is our Xact DMP, actually, data management platform, so many acronyms. But we don't call it DMP because most DMPs are mostly, if not only, based on web browsing cookies. And so this is quite misleading. information. So we are basing it on really mostly mobile and quality behavioral data. So we call it Universal Data Hub as, for example, the place where all the data goes. First, all of the data that's already being collected and the data that the SDK is going to contribute, the data that we are onboarding from third-party partners, the data that will be exchanged with a second party. So for instance, SDK clients that will contribute anonymous data to us. So it's where all of the data goes. So hence the Universal Data Hub name. Next question, do we plan to monetize? So that's a good question. As of now, this is version 1, which was written on the cover sheet, on the cover page. Version 1. So we just got started. Of course, in future versions, we could absolutely provide push notification ads. Absolutely. So some SDKs are actually doing this, such as CleverTap is one that we could look to for inspiration, where Loaded Data also actually have their SDK and provide in-app advertisement. So this would be for a future version. As of now, we do not. And in terms of monetization, I would say for the moment, we're starting with, let's say, beta clients. So we don't want to go out with and roll out already, tried, tested, and true commercial packages. We're just looking for data enrichment, let's say, for the first few customers to iron out any wrinkles in there. But eventually, yes, it's going to be a paying service because there's high potential in it. The rollout plan for the SDK, actually, I just basically mentioned it. How many apps will use? Oh, at least 5 billion eventually. Right now, we don't have any. We have, however, already some interesting customers that are gravitating around us ever since we mentioned the idea of developing this. So, so we have maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 customers that are potential on the pipeline. That's where we are right now. So the rollout plan, again, we start with a beta version, 1 client at a time, and eventually, yeah, we'll be ready to ramp it up. Is the data feedback, for example, geolocation, always on once in the app or only when using the app? So 2 answers for that. One, for an app to be able to provide always on or let's say background location, which is more frequent than only on app usage, the app has to have permission from the user to be able to grab that. So right now we don't have that. We're not collecting it, but we could if there was an app that had this permission and was asking us to grab this data. However, in the meantime, we are not only collecting geolocation when they are using the app, because those users that are found in the UDH, there is a wealth of information in terms of their location when using a wide variety of other apps. So it's already being enhanced by a lot of other apps usage. Okay. How many users data might we expect from the SDK at peak? So at peak, I would assume at the same time. Of course, if we have one client giving us some, spending some data, we might have, at the same time, depends what we mean. How, if you talk in the span of maybe 1 month, already with the first one, we could have 200,000 people, feeding some data to us. If you talk per minute or per second, then it depends. Are we, is there anything special happening inside the app? For instance, sometimes Boost will have some particular events that definitely generates some peak activity. But yeah, it's hard to say, but it should only grow because each app that the SDK is installed in will generate an additional batch of users contributing data. We have already run some quite intensive load tests to make sure that we are ready for whatever quantity of data is coming in. These SDKs can run only on Android and iOS platform. Yes, for now, we did not develop a Windows and BlackBerry version. We do not have that. Yogi, Could we have a POI list updated for Indonesia as well? Yes, it's part of the markets that we are going to develop and clean and improve the list of points of interest. So we already have a starting point, but we're going to look to make it better. Okay, this seems like we're out of questions for now. So let us wrap this up with two quick things. First is on the behalf of George, we wish to really extend some sincere thanks and congratulations to Chavalit and Crisada for developing this from scratch and enabling us all of these cool capabilities and new milestones. And also, this is going to be posted on the Slack ADA Xact webinar channel. So feel free to poke all of your colleagues who have not been in this webinar with us so that they can check it out and also be aware that we now have these possibilities.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for staying with us for the past 45 minutes. So yeah, thank you. See you again. Bye.